good morning. It is 17 minutes after 9 o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning, gubernatorial candidate for the Republican Party, representing the Republican Party, Greg Zanetti, back with us. Morning, sir.
Mike, it's great to be back. Thank you for having me, especially with what's going on right now.
Yeah, obviously World War III in a lot of people's minds is starting here. We talk about the war, what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, and a lot of people, justifiably so, should be nervous right now and looking at what's going on here. All putting, it just so happens you're running for governor here and things, but for folks that don't know, your prior experience includes, being a general in the military, the Guard. You were, I might be oversimplifying this, but I always tell people at one point you were like the head dude for Guard of New Mexico, pretty much. Am I close on that? I know there's titles and semantics and all that, but pretty much you ran the show for the Guard for New Mexico. You also were running Guantanamo Bay, Gitmo, and were there when it finally they said we're done with all that, some of that stuff. You were involved with all, so you've got experience in the big picture of the world politics and the world military and all of that stuff. So your insight on what's going on in Russia is probably a little bit more educated than the average person.
Well, I hope so. I'd like to give your listeners a broader context of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so, Mike, I'm going to take you back 15, 18 years. Vladimir Putin gave a series of speeches across Europe, in particular in Davos, Switzerland.
Okay.
And Mike, it was something like this. Why are we kowtowing to the Americans? Look what we have on the Eurasian continent. We have technological and engineering capabilities second to none in Europe, particularly in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
We have all the resources you could want across Russia and the stands, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, all that. And we have the factory floor to the world in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we should unite. Let's build roads, bridges, pipelines, communication systems, commodities exchanges, stock exchanges, internet, capabilities. We don't have to fight the Americans. We can ignore them. Let's build a giant land power from the Atlantic to the Pacific and to our friends in the Middle East. Join us in this great endeavor.
So being like the saviors of Europe and Asia, basically.
Basically.
Yeah.
And he said, look, Eurasia has always been the center of humanity. It has never been in the Western Hemisphere. This is an anomaly. Let's return it to its rightful place.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. Well, this was the kind of speech that just brought people to their feet. Putin. It was this kind of thing.
Sure. Which, by the way, Hitler was very popular.
Right.
Prior to becoming the Hitler we know and despise.
Right. Right. And so now what's happened over the last 15, 18 years?
Uh-huh.
They've done this. Initially, they called it the New Silk Road. Now it's called the One Belt, One Road Initiative. But they have built roads. They have built bridges and pipelines and alliances.
They've upgraded the infrastructure.
Right. And so I guess the point I want to make this morning is Ukraine is an important piece, but to a much bigger puzzle in this unification of the Eurasian continent to rival, basically the Western Hemisphere and America's dominance.
Sure.
So think what's happened here. Basically, I think we're witnessing the remaking of the world order. So Russia clearly went into Ukraine, not just for the wealth. Yes, he wants all that farmland and the coal and the rare earth elements and all that comes with it. But I think he also wanted to splinter NATO. And Mike, he's kind of done it.
Gotcha.
I mean, Germany's sort of in, but sort of not. France is sort of in, sort of not. And then the other thing he wanted to do was weaken our currency, because he saw what happened in Afghanistan back in August. And when Afghanistan fell in such a horrific and disorganized way, it was game on.
Gotcha.
Because the world saw it and they said, America's weak. And if America's weak, why do we trust their currency? And did you notice when prices really started to go up here? It was about there.
Okay.
Because the world started dumping dollars.
Gotcha.
So every night, our Federal Reserve was mopping up dollars out on the international markets to try to keep some value to it.
Sure.
And I think Putin thought, if we can embarrass them in Ukraine as well, we can smash their currency.
So, I mean, is this something that it's been kind of under Putin's playing for a long time, and then the debacle that happened in Afghanistan was the linchpin that said, now's the timing to unleash what I want to do. Is that, in essence, what kind of went down, you think?
I think so.
Okay.
And so let's again put context to this. Let's go back to the fall of the Soviet Union and what happened and why he's thinking the way he's thinking. All right. You remember the last years of Jimmy Carter, it looked kind of like now, rising gas prices, rising oil prices. Well, back then, Mike, the Soviets couldn't even make a toaster that the world wanted.
Yeah.
But they had oil. And as prices hit for the day, it was a big number, $38, $39, $40 a barrel. Money was pouring into the Kremlin. Well, then Reagan got elected, and Thatcher had already been elected in England.
Okay.
And so they got together and said, you know, if we can drive the price of oil down, we can smash the ruble. If we smash the ruble, we can knock out the Soviet Empire. Well, they were fortunate. North Sea oil was coming online for the Brits. Prudhoe Bay was coming online for the Americans.
Gotcha.
And then the key was to get the Saudis to open the spigots. And they did. And all of eastern New Mexico and West Texas will remember this. From like 1981 to 85, 86, 87, we saw the price of oil go from almost 40 down to single digits.
Wow.
Well, the Soviets couldn't even pump it at 10. And when the money dried up, there was no money to repair the tanks. The submarines rusted and the planes didn't fly. And by the late 80s, it was over.
By the time we're in there looking to see all their glasnost and all that, it wasn't all like their military was not maintained, the tires, everything was sad. Yeah.
Right. Well, there was a young KGB officer by the name of Vladimir Putin who witnessed this whole thing. And he said, they took down my currency. And when they took down the currency, they took down my nation. And now what's happening? You're seeing the same thing playing out now as he's going after the dollar because he saw what happened in Afghanistan.
So is the solution the same? We just, I know this is we as Americans, obviously our president shut down the Keystone Pipeline, right before all this stuff went down. So is the answer really drill, baby, drill? Is that fire it all back up and get back and put America off of relying on foreign oil and things like that again? Or is it bigger than that?
It's bigger than that because we also have to bring manufacturing back.
Gotcha.
Because back in the late 70s, early 80s, we were still a manufacturing nation. We hadn't shipped it all off to China. This is what President Trump was trying to do. He saw the playing field pretty clearly, and he said, all right, we need to renegotiate our trade pacts. And he did. He renegotiated NAFTA and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Good on him. And then he was trying to bring manufacturing home. And then, of course, then he got taken out in the last election, and Biden just reversed all of it. Well, he weakened us almost immediately. And so the world's different than from back then.
Sure.
But think of what's playing out now. China has clearly sided with the Russians.
Gotcha.
I mean, and again, think of this big picture, the Eurasian superpower.
They're looking, because if correct me if I'm wrong, they're kind of waiting on the sidelines to see how this plays out to see what they're going to do with Taiwan.
Oh, smart guy.
Yeah.
Right. Think of what they're doing. First, they've teamed up with the Russians, but they also saw this financial and economic nuclear bomb that we dropped on the Russians. I mean, the sanctions we imposed, this was something else.
Yeah.
I mean, we attacked their central bank. We have seized assets. We have shut them off from the banking systems. We took down their stock exchange. We're taking down their currency. The world has never seen, I called it World War E, economic electronic warfare like this. Well, if you're China, you're making notes. All right, wait a minute. If they just did this to Russia, how do we prevent ourselves from being hurt like this before we go to Taiwan?
Sure.
So what are they doing? The Chinese are de-dollarizing. We've got to get out of the U.S. systems. We have to separate from these banking systems.
Sure.
Otherwise, we could be a victim.
Gotcha. So they're cutting those ties to keep us from really getting into their stuff when they try to pull the same shenanigans down the road here.
Exactly. Well, okay, you don't have to be, a big economist to figure this out. If your currency is being dumped, if there's less demand for your currency, while we are increasing the supply by trillions. I mean, you saw just last week, we signed a $1.5 trillion spending bill. Or if supply of dollars is soaring while demand is dropping, what happens to the value of your currency? down she goes.
Yeah.
And what's happening to prices?
Up they go.
Right. So in some ways, Biden, I think, what are you thinking here? I mean, what have you done long-term to hurt our currency? And now look what else China's doing. I think I could make a strong case that China's been pivoting toward a wartime economy for well over a year. So we started seeing, gaps on the shelves last year, even the year before. Because they were moving to a wartime economy, making fewer consumer goods. Meanwhile, they're stockpiling hard metals like copper and aluminum and lead, the rare earth elements. And they're also stockpiling soft commodities. Think food. You may not know this, but 60% of all the world's stored food is now in China.
Wow.
Mike, why would you do that? Unless you were trying to insulate yourself from an embargo as you attack Taiwan. So that's the second piece of this puzzle. You've got Ukraine going on, Putin trying to splinter NATO, take the wealth, and hurt the dollar. China preparing to take Taiwan and establish themselves as the regional power absent America. All right, America, you're gone. Now add another piece, Iran. What's Iran done over the weekend? They fired a missile at the U.S. consulate in Iraq. You think that was just a coincidence?
Yeah, no, this is all,
Right. Right. Now, whether it was planned or whether that was just opportunistic, but they have also shown that they can fire missiles from Iran into Israel and to hit our troops on the Arabian Peninsula. Okay, got it. And now you've got India. This was the one that just kind of blew me away. India under Trump was our buddy. We got along really well. When Biden came in, it all changed.
Did it?
So in December, just 3 months ago, India signed an arms and trade deal with the Russians. And then last week, in the middle of the sanctions, they said, look, we don't want to participate in these sanctions at all. We'll do trade with you, Russia, and we'll do it with the ruble and the rupee and not the dollar. Again, another attack on the currency.
They're lining up their partners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you start putting this puzzle together, going back to Putin's big speech back 20 years ago, let's unite, you're starting to see it come together.
Gotcha.
This is the bigger picture that, anyway, you and I here in Roswell can't control right now.
Sure.
But what should New Mexico do about it?
Sure. We've got to prepare our end game for whatever's going to happen globally here. Yeah.
Right. And think how New Mexico could help the nation. What do we have here in this state, Mike? Not only do we have oil and gas, we have potash for fertilizer. And you've seen Russia and the fertilizer thing. We know what's going on there, cutting the exports. We have lithium. We have 4 of the 17 rare earth elements.
Which is all lithium, by the way. Everyone, their electric cars and electric, that's going to be the commodity everyone wants. It's the lithium.
Right. Yeah. And then we have the rare earth elements here for the 17. We have copper. We have uranium. And we talked about small modular nuclear reactors last time I was on. And said,
which
hey,
would fix a lot of energy problems.
It does. And it's not competing against oil and gas. In fact, kind of the opposite.
It works in concert.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we have this wealth from the earth, the stuff that Putin, cherishes over in Ukraine. We've got it here in New Mexico. We could help America. Plus, we have these brilliant minds in this state. The new technologies, the quantum computing, the artificial intelligence, nanotech, micromachinery.
All that stuff going on in Los Alamos there.
Los Alamos,
those big
Sandia
heads in
Labs,
their brain. Yeah.
New Mexico Tech. We have in New Mexico State. We have these brilliant minds here.
Sure.
And if you combine, this wealth from the human mind with the natural resources, watch what happens to your society.
Sure.
So could New Mexico go from worst to first? And could we be contributing back to the United States at a time when the U.S. really needs us?
Sure.
The answer would be yes. So this is why I'm running for governor. And I didn't expect it was going to play out like this. But, Mike, I can just see us blossoming and helping.
Sure.
Anyway.
If you've got leadership that sees the writing on the wall and are willing to, instead of react to what's going on, be 3 steps ahead of it and prepare for, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I feel like we've been, especially in the world of COVID, we've been living in a reactionary world where we're just responding to what's going on here instead of anticipating and mitigating and coming up with ways. And I think, like you're saying here is, if we plan a little and see the writing on the wall here, we can line up our industries, we can line up our resources, and we can not only be a servant for good for this country, but at the same time turn New Mexico into a very financial and
prosperous,
educational, and not just more money, but those things we're all 50th in, like education and crime and all that stuff. That those numbers start to go up because now there's there's entities investing money, time, and their resources into the state, which in essence turns into a lot of money and a lot of good growth for our community.
Right, and all with a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And you mentioned thinking 3 steps ahead. Well, Mike, why aren't we making the speech that Putin made?
Yeah.
Except instead of looking east-west, looking north-south.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Canada and the United States and Mexico and Argentina have natural resources. I mean, unbelievable what we have in this Western Hemisphere. Do we have the finest technological and engineering minds in the world in this hemisphere? Yes. Do we have all kinds of food, not just across the Great Plains in the U.S., but down in South America? Why don't we unite north-south?
Mm-hmm.
And in that situation, think what that does to New Mexico. In east-west trade, New Mexico's kind of landlocked. You got big old California, to our west.
Not a lot of ports in New Mexico.
No. And then Arizona is kind of a buffer. And then looking to the east, you got, gigantic Texas.
Sure.
And we're kind of squished. But in north-south trade, think how we're positioned.
Yeah.
I mean, I-25 ought to be the Autobahn.
Yeah.
Running up
Sending
and down.
stuff down to Mexico and Central America.
Sure,
and
of course.
Farther south and vice versa up north to Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
And I-40 should be the same, and I-10 should be the same. As it comes up, then it sprays out across the country. And so if you start viewing New Mexico in that light, could the governor of New Mexico start looking for trade deals in this hemisphere?
And then
yes.
The other argument I would say there, yes, talking about our resources and things like that, we can also do that and not destroy the earth. That's the other thing I want to, because I know people saying, oh, yeah, we got the lithium. Yeah, but now that's going to be mining, drilling, all the things that we don't, that they're saying we need less of in New Mexico. And I'm like, no, we can do both.
Yes, we can.
We've got plenty of stuff. I'm telling you right now, the restrictions they put on oil and gas, I'm telling you, the oil and gas are better stewards of that property than sometimes the government is, because they live in those same areas instead of someone that's 1,000 miles away telling them how to work this stuff. And that's a difference. And they don't want to tell you that. They want to tell you that these companies are evil and just want your money. And granted, they ain't in the business to lose money. They're going to make money, and they're going to do things to make money. But at the same time, they're not going to destroy the earth.
Correct.
They're going to work hand in hand with government. And generally speaking, most oil companies go above and beyond whatever government regulations are required for them. A lot of times you look at their things, and they're doing more than what the government's requiring them to do to maintain safety and security on some of this stuff. So, yes, we got these new opportunities. Well, we can get it and mine it and drill it or get access to it without destroying our and still staying with it, keeping New Mexico the beautiful place that we love it. We can do both. We can do that.
Absolutely, because the technology is so improved.
Yes.
I mean, this isn't like the 1920s when nobody really knew how to do this stuff, so you just got it in the most, blunt way you could.
Yeah.
But no, you look at the oil and gas industry and how they've combined high tech and low tech to help the nation. I mean, what's more low tech than oil?
Yeah.
Not much.
But how much high tech comes out of that?
Right. Think what these guys are doing. They're drilling down, 2 miles?
Yeah.
And then going horizontally another mile.
And
it's amazing technology.
And the thing that gets me is any renewable based energy solution we have right now. And I'm not saying in the future they won't be more efficient. They will be. They'll be better and they'll be more efficient. But right now, you can't have wind or solar or any of those without petroleum-based products doing the heavy lifting. So so you can't bite the hand that's feeding you right now, and that's what what New Mexico's really been doing they're biting the hand that feeds, and we need to figure that out. And obviously you get those.
Right. And you and I talked last time about how New Mexico could not only be the energy state, let's embrace all of it, but we could also become the water state.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the listeners who didn't hear this last time, New Mexico is the Saudi Arabia of brackish water. We have billions of acre feet of salty water.
Which is very functional for a lot of different uses.
It is. Plus, the technology to desalinate has just soared. And as the technology got better, the prices come down.
Gotcha.
And so here's what we would do. We would get the desal plants, pair them up with these small modular nuclear reactors. And by the way, this water's all over the state. The Tularosa Basin, it's in eastern New Mexico. It's up in Farmington. It's down in Las Cruces.
So it's plentiful
everywhere.
Statewide.
Deming has got a ton of it. Anyway, so if you desal 40, 50 million gallons of water at night, the energy you would use would be from this small modular nuclear reactor about the size of a McDonald's that will power 60,000 homes, that will not, it won't melt down.
Basically, Roswell could do with one and be good to
easily.
Go. Yeah.
All right. So then during the day, the reactor runs your city. At night, it's the power to clean your water for the next day. And you take the excess electricity and you sell it to California at a profit.
Wow.
Can you see it?
That's like ultimate reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly. And now what happens? It's this brackish water isn't owed to Texas. It's not covered under the compacts.
Sure.
Now you don't have the city competing against the rural areas for the water, for the freshwater use, because you don't use desal water, out in the fields.
Right.
And you become more independent, not just in energy, but in water, which we all desperately need. And watch what happens to this state.
Sure.
Anyway.
You always hear the joke in this part of the state that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. That's the joke you hear because of water rights. This kind of deals with some of that stuff. I do want to ask a question real quick, back to the Russia stuff.
Sure.
I'm kind of curious, what do you think's going to happen? Because at some point, I believe Ukraine's going to fall.
Me too.
They're not going to be able to sustain it. How long it's going to take, whether it's a month or 2 months or a week or whatever it is, that's debatable. But at some point, Ukraine's going to fall to Russia.
Right.
What do you think happens next after that? I mean, militarily, is Russia done at that point? Do you think they're going to move on to a NATO country, or are they going to go after Belarus or someplace that's still not NATO but part of the old Soviet Republic? Like, what do you think where do you think Putin's going to go next after Ukraine falls?
I think he'll consolidate. That's what you would do initially. You'd regroup. You would, repair your vehicles, and you'd go after the Baltic states.
Gotcha.
That would be next. And he sees that we have weak and confused leadership.
Yes.
And that's our issue.
I feel like that's the big thing, is because the timing with I think, say what you want about Trump. Love him, hate him, despise him, think he's an idiot, or think he's the best thing since sliced bread, whatever you think. I think the fact that he's not there is the reason why this, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think, like you said, the Afghanistan situation kind of was the icing on the cake that just confirmed what he probably thought all along. And since that happened, he said, that confirms, I know exactly what's going on. Now's the time to make our play. America's weak, and we can take advantage of that. And that's, and I think, if Donald Trump, love him, hate him, or whatever, was our president today, I don't think we were talking about a war in Ukraine right now. I don't think Putin would have tried to make that play right now. That's my opinion.
No, I agree totally. And he didn't. Remember, they've been talking about this plan going back 15, 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they weren't quite prepared to do it, but saw this is our chance.
Sure.
And actually, they're probably right.
Yeah.
And so, again, you're seeing the remaking of the world order right before your eyes.
Sure.
Even if this war ended today, energy flows, food flows, currency systems, banking systems are all going to be irrevocably changed.
Yeah.
And you are seeing the uniting of, believe it or not, India, China, Iran, and Russia. And if they can just tip Germany, and Germany, of course, is so dependent on Russian energy right now, if they can get Germany to look east instead of looking west. The rest of Europe will go with it, and that dream will be fulfilled. That's why Putin can't back down. This idea that suddenly he's going to get overthrown and the people are going to rise up. Man, they don't understand Russian history.
Sure.
That's not how it goes over there.
But I'm just curious. So if say America started firing up the plants and the things today, I know it doesn't happen overnight. If to fire it up today, it would still be months before we start seeing the impact from that. But really, is that the best solution that America can do right now to combat whatever Putin's plan to execute and what's going on behind that? Would that create? And I'm not even sure that fixes it. That just slows it down and makes it a lot harder for him to do what he's got to do.
It does.
Yeah.
If we became more independent across the board, and we totally have the capabilities to do this, then we have actually some big advantages in this hemisphere that they don't have. I mean, it all sounds great to unite the Eurasian continent, but think how many different religions you've got that have not gotten along very well over thousands of years. There are a lot of hatreds that are so built in. There are some problems here.
Sure.
Plus, you have so many different cultures, and trying to make this mesh is going to be very, very difficult.
Sure.
Meanwhile, here in the Americas, basically we share a God. And, you know, it's pretty much whether you're Protestant or Catholic or Christian, and we share, I don't know, heritage, custom. I mean, it's much easier for us to unite over here than they can.
Sure. Well, and in theory, our country is created as a melting pot. That's been the crux of this country from the beginning. Bring us your tired. Bring us your weary. These are, people came to this country to avoid oppression of some kind, whether it's religious or sexual or color based or whatever it is. They avoided some kind of persecution to, historically, and so we may not all agree. On this country, but guess what? There is no other country on the planet better equipped to deal with cultural bias and differences than this one, I believe, because I totally agree. We're built to be that way. That's how that's why people come in from foreign lands and bring their culture and bring their food and bring their beliefs with them, and they can be here, and we all, sure, we may not agree, but we can, and I think that's and so I always tell people, like, you see your Black Lives Matter, you see these things going on, and you see, I was like, try that move in Kyiv right now.
Oh, no.
Or any other Europe, you know what I'm saying? And you're going to find out that you got it pretty good over here after all said and done. And that's what, it's like, we got problems, but you know what? We're the beacon of example here. And
I agree.
And we need, and that's what makes this country great. And that's why, what we do in the world is impacted so much the way it is because of that stuff. And so, I really want to get that message home that we, it's not so bad here. We got it all right. You got to, because if you sit there and complain about your piddlings here, things like what's going on over there is going to finally impact your world much greater right here if you're not prepared for it. So that's just my thoughts.
No, I totally agree. And you could bring all those thoughts right back to New Mexico.
Yeah.
We've always gotten along really well here.
I mean, we don't agree on everything, obviously, but yeah, we kind of, we make things happen, and we do. Despite the cards dealt, we're going to figure out a way to come and navigate through it. So, of course, if folks have been listening, they're like, man, this Greg Zanetti guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe I want to learn more about him.
This is nice of you. You don't have to do this.
I would love to, give out for people that can, if they want to research more, get involved in your campaign. Obviously, I know this is a busy. I imagine with primaries months away now. Instead of it seemed like it was. Like June seemed like it was forever.
It's coming up fast.
And now you're like, wait a minute, it's like March, April's right around the corner.
Voting starts in May.
Yeah, early voting will be gearing up here pretty quick. Now's the time to start paying attention to this stuff and really and looking at the Republican side. You've got candidates that are really giving you some different angles and different opinions on things here. So please reach out and research what you got to say.
Yeah, it's Zanetti, Z as in zebra, ANETTI for governor.com. And what you'll learn about me, I'm from here. I went to Valley High School in Albuquerque. Then I went to West Point. And then I had the military career, but I've also managed lots of money for really wealthy people.
Sure.
And so
you got the military and the finance background.
And it all goes together.
And you're talking, exactly. That's the point I'm making there. It's all goes hand in hand on some of this stuff.
Right. And so if you see both sides, if you see the economic war that's playing out, the financial war, and of course, the kinetic war on the ground right now, you start thinking, okay, I can't control this. Mike, you can't control it.
Yeah.
But we can pivot in New Mexico with the right leadership to benefit from it, not just here in New Mexico, but to help the country.
Sure.
That's the opportunity that's before us right now.
I think also a lot of people, I mean, not people that have been, I mean, some people that pay attention and read, they didn't, but I think a lot of Americans honestly thought we'd never see a World War II type scenario again. Like you think technology or the science or we've evolved, whatever your logic or reasoning was. And I think what we're seeing right now in the world is like, oh, you think you're never going to see that again? Just wait. It's a month away. You know what I mean? It's a couple moves away every time from doing what we're seeing right now in this world.
If I were Israel, I'd have my head on a swivel right now based on what's going on. And then with the other thing, we've got to be careful of the hawkish, let's go get them, the Russians have hypersonic missiles.
Mm-hmm.
These, maybe we have them, but we haven't demonstrated them yet. These are missiles that actually go into space, which gives them limitless range. Once you're in orbit, you can go anywhere. They come back through the atmosphere at 15 times the speed of sound.
Wow.
I can't tell you how fast that is.
That's very.
And here's the key part. They're guidable. You know, ballistic missiles go up and down like a softball. So you at least have a shot to intercept it. With a hypersonic, you won't know if it's going to hit Memphis or Detroit until 3 seconds out.
Oh, wow.
Right. This is what people don't get. And prior to this invasion, Putin brought some of his submarines up to hover depth, and he launched them. And he basically was saying, look, I'm going to be in this place this time. Watch this. We're not fooling around. He did the same thing with mobile land-based launchers. He gave the coordinates to us, and he said, watch this. And he fired his hypersonics in test mode, basically saying, leave us alone. We're not messing around. We don't want to do this.
Gotcha.
And so, again, I'm not saying we surrender to Putin, but let's be aware of where Biden has put us now.
Sure.
And it's hard to overstate how foolish Biden has been and why we're in this situation now. Because you're right. If it had been Trump, we wouldn't be here now.
Yeah. But, yeah, you can't. There's got to be some finesse on this. You can't just go in there and say, America, and start blowing stuff up. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
I know it's fun to say and feel that way. When you get in there and light up to work, get some A-10s, we'll be just fine. I get that, but no, it don't work that way. You know, it's like I've heard more people, and I've said it myself. You know, they keep showing that 40-mile convoy, and of course, people ever spend any time in the military, a couple A-10s, that's gone, that's bye-bye. And you're right, but that's it's different.
You know what I wonder about with that? What happened? Do we have some weapons? A 40-mile convoy that just went, one part of the convoy just went down.
I would not be surprised.
Right.
Just from my time in the military, I've seen things that the public doesn't necessarily know that we do.
Right. What did we do to them?
Yeah.
Guessing. And then, of course, you and I have talked about, some of this stuff that Lockheed Martin and the U.S. Navy have patented for vehicle, basically they're aircraft that seemingly defy the laws of physics.
Yeah.
And so, I wonder if some of the UFOs, we're in UFO land, that we see right now are us. Mm-hmm. Have we figured something out?
Sure. Well, it's kind of like, and I think it's safe for me to say this now, some 20 years removed, but on the radio, and I've talked a little bit about it. But when I worked, I was a weapons troop on the 117s, the Stealth at Holloman. And so I was in when we were dealing with Milosevic in Kosovo and all of that, 99, 2000, that time frame. And I will tell you, we mostly loaded and dropped laser guided bombs on bunkers, various targets and things like that. But towards the end, we were dropping these cluster bombs that basically took out power. They used some kind of microwave technology.
Right.
And they literally did the whole, what you see here doesn't, they brought us to a hangar and showed us top secret photos of what you see here doesn't exist and made us sign disclosure statements and all the whole nine about these things.
Right.
And of course, even the crew chiefs didn't know. The only people that knew what was in these bombs were the weapons guys and the pilots.
Right.
And so they did their mission, and everyone's asking. But then, of course, later that day, it was all over the Stars and Stripes magazine talking about this new cluster bomb that took out. But basically, it just zapped power, and it had 120 of these bomblets in there, and if two of them can talk, it would zap power within an X amount of area. And so the folks from Yugoslavia are in there. Power plant gets zapped out. They go and fix it back up and then bring it back online. And they didn't collect all these bomblets. It's frying again. So it took out all the power in Belgrade. But what I mean is, we have that kind of stuff that the world doesn't have, about all the time when we just use it. And then they say, hey, here it is.
But Mike, all right, so bring it back to New Mexico. What if you had a governor who went to Lockheed Martin and to the Pentagon, and a governor who spoke military, General Zanetti, and spoke finance, financial advisors? He said, look, we've seen these patents. What's it going to take for you to research it, test it, and build it here? Mm-hmm. We have a lot of empty sky.
We do.
And we have a spaceport that is being used for next to nothing.
We got a lot of bombing ranges and a lot of open space here. Yeah.
And so what's it going to take? We want to be the center of gravity for the new technologies that we think you guys have figured out. Shouldn't you have a governor who starts thinking like that?
Absolutely.
Instead of just thinking that our economic development plan should be casinos, weed, and personal injury attorneys? Yeah. I mean, this is the way we've got to be thinking in this state. And again, it's why I'm running for governor.
We should be on the technology bubble cusp right there. And, when they talk about Silicon Valley and all those terms you hear in the 90s, it should be right here in New Mexico. You're right. That's where it should be.
And it can be.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it can be. Go to Greg Zanetti's website.
Yeah,
learn
ZanettiForGovernor.com.
Yeah, and learn more about, what we can do here and get involved with this stuff. And let's see. And I'm sure even if you don't agree with everything Greg's here, reach out to him. He'll be happy to talk to you about this stuff and get going. Are you going to be in town doing anything today, tomorrow?
Well, I go from here to Loco Hills, believe it or not. Then I'm heading over to Hobbs for an event tonight. But then I'll be back in Roswell tomorrow.
Okay.
So, and we're having an event tomorrow night. I should have brought the address, but it's a candidate forum.
Okay.
And the Republican Party is sponsoring it here, and would love to have any of your listeners come.
Is that going to be over at the convention center? I think that's what I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to be taking place over there. So
so come on out.
Yeah, they're doing the gubernatorial, and then the next night I think is the lieutenant governor candidate forum that they're going to be doing. So Tuesday night is the governor's, Wednesday night, and I think it's all over at the convention center by the Chaves County Federated Republican Women, I believe.
That's right.
I think that's
right. Federal are sponsoring it, not the party. But,
so that's it's tomorrow night and then Wednesday night, all at the Convention and Civic Center. There.
Nice.
So very good. So you can meet Greg and get there early. Get a chance to meet the Greg and the various candidates, and you get to ask some questions and talk to them that they may not address or deal at the forums there.
No, I love this part of the state, Mike.
Good deal.
I mean, you hardworking, producing, and you're right. To be treated as badly as this part of the state has been by our governor is disgusting.
Yeah. So. Well, we thank you for visiting. Thank you for spending time. Thanks for talking Russia with us for a little bit.
It's fun. You make it easy.
I think you gave some people some real understandings on what's actually going on there that might dispel those things they read on Facebook from time to time.
Spread the word, Zanetti for governor.
There you go.
Thank
you, sir. Appreciate you. Mike. We'll see you next time.
God bless you, man.
All right. It is 9.